And ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Thrashers Paradise. Today we have joining us all the way from the beautiful province of British Columbia. We have Spencer. He's the bass player and vocalist to a band called Truent.
Yes, I am actually just the bass player and backup vocalist, but yes, thank you for having me on, man.
Anytime, man. Thank you for wanting to come on. Now, the first question I'm going to ask is, I hope this isn't too embarrassing, but is this your first interview?
It is not, actually.
Ah.
Actually, I did another Skype interview just 2 days ago with a guy from our city who was starting a podcast up. We've done a handful of interviews for other things kind of over the course of time, but we always love doing interviews. It's a good time for us, so we appreciate you having me on.
Excellent. Anytime. Now, I want to start off with this. You're from Maple Ridge, British Columbia, as well. I'm reading from
Yes.
your Facebook page. Now, what's the metal scene like in Maple Ridge?
Well, Maple Ridge, we had a few really good bands from Maple Ridge, some that aren't quite as active as we are these days. Unbeheld was a really great tech death band from Maple Ridge. Their drummer Izzy is actually the drummer for Wormwitch now,
Oh,
and they've been
wow.
doing a lot of cool shit, touring with like Black Dahlia Murder and Uada and stuff. We had a great band called the Mountain Man who did a lot of really cool shit from Maple Ridge. But as it stands right now, we're kind of the only active metal band out here. We mostly kind of fall into the Vancouver scene because city of Vancouver is only like 45 minutes away from where we live.
Oh, excellent. That actually answered my next question of how far away are you from the bigger city, Vancouver.
Yeah.
Now, for Truant, how hard was it at first to try and immerse yourself into the metal scene in Vancouver?
Um, it wasn't that difficult. The metal scene here is pretty open and welcoming to people. We have a really great scene with a really lot of wonderful people out here, and we had a few people that we knew from like some smaller things that we had did that said, "Oh, you should come play these shows," and so we started playing like real shows in Vancouver and kind of just kept with that and have steadily built some stuff up for ourselves as we've gone along. It's been great. We love the community here. It's fantastic.
Excellent. Now, 2 years ago in 2018, you released the EP To an End of Ancient Way of Life.
Yeah.
What was that like to create that EP?
It was a lot of fun. The way we write music, we are very collaborative, all four of us working together. So oftentimes we do find ourselves butting heads and kind of, arguing and stuff. But we all have our own kind of diverse tastes and things that we enjoy and bring to the table. And I think four heads in our case kind of think better than one. And we created something in the end that we really enjoyed. And like we made music for ourselves that we would want to listen to and kind of just hoped that other people would enjoy it as well.
Excellent. I heard it earlier today, and I absolutely loved it. It's a brilliant
Awesome.
EP,
Thank you so
and
much.
you're very welcome. Now, back in 2017, you released another EP called Faith in the Forgotten.
Yes.
Yes. What for you was the biggest difference between the two EPs?
It was definitely a big difference in professionalism. For our most recent release, we went to a professional studio, had a real producer kind of work on everything. What we did for Faith in the Forgotten was, I believe we were either still in high school or just kind of barely out of high school at that point, and we ended up recording everything from the drums all the way up to the vocals in our vocalist guitar player's Johnny's basement where we jam. And yeah, he kind of engineered that whole record himself, but we definitely wanted something more professional this time around, or that time around, because we're already working on another release at this point. But that time around, yeah, we ended up working with Matt Roach at Rain City Recorders in Vancouver. That was a really great experience. He's a really good dude. And we were really happy with the sound of the last EP. We thought it was a huge step up from the first one. As much as we still kind of look back on that first record with a little bit of nostalgia and like, oh man, that was a cool thing to do for a bunch of like 17, 18-year-old kids. But yeah, we were definitely much happier with To End an Ancient Way of Life than we were with Faith.
Excellent. Now, going off of what you said a bit earlier in your answer about new material, with this whole coronavirus stuff happening all across the country and all across the world, does that kind of speed up creating the album, or does
Um,
it slow it down?
it's kind of almost been the same because this kind of hit us a little more fortunately than a lot of bands. We pretty much had everything written right before lockdown, and where we basically aren't able to see each other. And we've got our lead guitarist working on his guitar leads and solos, and our drummer who writes most of the lyrics working on the lyrics for the new record. So things are kind of steadily moving along still. But yeah, I would say it slowed things down just a little bit, but we're all still plugging away, practicing individually very hard, getting these new songs down. It's going to delay our recording for sure because we were going to be going into the studio in probably May or June, but it's not looking like that's going to happen with the state of the world at this point. But we're hopeful. Hopefully, it gives us some extra time to, reflect on what we're working on and see if we can make it better in any way and not be in any rush to get things done. And that way, when it comes out, we'll be that much happier with it.
Awesome. Now, when this whole thing is over and there's the green light to go to the studio to record the album, is there going to be that immediate push to get into the studio, or is it going to take a while for you all to collectively agree it's now time to record it?
I think it's probably going to be fairly immediate because even just in like the previous weeks before this really kind of took over the world and kind of, really affected everyday life, we were getting to the point where we were kind of ready to start tracking. So we're really just working on the details at this point, kind of online, sending each other stuff and making sure we're all really happy with what we've got written and what's going on with this new record. So I think it's a blessing and a curse for us in the sense that we had some gigs that we would have really liked to play and we would have really liked to get in the studio sooner, but it could end up making this album that much better for us that now that we have this time and kind of a little bit of a lack of immediacy to get into the studio, get stuff out, and get back on the road.
Awesome. Now, to kind of go off of once this is all done and everything, are you going to be part of that mass group of bands that are going to want to play shows immediately? Or are you just going to wait for that mass gathering of bands that are doing all these shows to kind of die down and then just immerse yourselves in that little cool-off period where there isn't as many shows happening?
We're not sure at this point. We were kind of before all this already slowing down the amount of shows and touring we were doing, kind of just for the sake of giving the time we need to work on the next record and to make that the best it can be. So it all depends on the timing. I don't think we'll be getting out there and playing a whole lot of shows when this gets lifted because we'll most likely just be in the studio. So we just kind of got to let the album take its natural course and get that done to the best we can. And once that's ready to go, we'll be getting on the road and playing lots of shows and reaching new places and all that fun stuff.
Awesome. Now, I've heard of you because of a poster I saw for the festival Loud as Hell, which happens in Drumheller, Alberta, in around August, early August, late July.
Yeah.
Sadly, that's a big question mark for this year. Do you think there's a chance it might be canceled, or are you hoping that it will still go on?
We are remaining optimistic that it'll still happen. Obviously, it's still quite a few months away at this point. We were really looking forward to it because it's one of our only live appearances this year. I think we played 2 shows this year prior to that, and we had one other one scheduled. And it was going to be our only Alberta show. So we're hoping that it still happens. We love going out to Alberta. We've been on tour to Alberta every year for the last couple of years, heading out there. That festival looks like a lot of fun. We played Armstrong Metal Fest in Armstrong, BC last year, and that was a really great festival experience. So we're hoping to get that again this year. We're going to stay optimistic, but obviously if public health and safety concerns are still going on then it'll be understandable if it gets scrapped.
Yeah, exactly. I'm actually hoping it doesn't get canceled because I want to go just to experience it because it looked like a lot of fun and there was a lot of great bands on that bill.
Yeah.
Like, for you personally on that bill, who were you most excited to see pop up on that poster?
I was very excited to see that Allegiant was headlining. I really love that band. I got into them through their Rush covers because I'm a huge Rush nerd, and yeah, they're a really cool band. Was really excited to see the homies in like Widow's Peak again. Yeah, there's tons of bands from all over Canada. There's a band called, I believe, Insurrection from like Quebec, who's a really great band. Tortured Saint, who we played with at Armstrong, is awesome. Our local homies from Blackwater Burial, Neck of the Woods, bands like that. Vultures from Victoria, BC. It was a kick-ass lineup. There's a lot of bands on that we're really looking forward to checking out.
Excellent. Now, I lost my train of thought.
No worries.
Excellent. Perfect. Oh, that train got back on the rails. Remember what I was going to ask.
All right.
Now, yes, okay. Now, when this new EP or album does come out, I'm assuming there would be a tour with it.
Yep.
Now, would it be a Canada-wide tour or just a West Coast tour?
We're kind of thinking more along the lines of hammering the West Coast for the most part. Kind of hitting our BC, Alberta, where we've kind of built up a good following, and then spending a lot of time down in like the West Coast US. We kind of have plans to hit Washington, Oregon, California, places like that. If we do see a lot of demand on the East Coast in Canada, we'll absolutely consider a cross-Canada tour. But at this point, we're really trying to build shit up on the West Coast to kind of like have a safe zone so we can slowly push our way out further across the continent.
Smart man. That's a brilliant idea.
Thanks, man.
No problem, man. I can't. That's just really smart marketing right there.
Well, yeah, there's so many places you can hit within 10, 12 hours of your hometown that would love to see you. And even if you have bunk shows, at least you're not too far from home. Whereas if you go across Canada for a month or so, which you kind of got to set aside to do something that big, it's a little bit more of a risk. But if there is demand when the record comes out and we see a big fan base emerge over there, then we'd absolutely head out east.
Excellent. Now, I'm sorry to keep badgering on about this, but where for you personally on the East Coast of Canada would you like to perform the most in?
I would really love to hit Ontario and Quebec. I've been to Quebec a handful of times as a kid. I really love that province. I think it's gorgeous. There's a lot of beautiful things in those cities like Montreal, Quebec City. I have actually spent almost no time in Ontario, and I would really like to see some of the cities there and play there. I hear really good things about a lot of the scenes out there. It seems like East Coast bands are consistently taking home prizes, like winning the Wacken Metal Battle and getting to go and play in Germany. So yeah, those two provinces we'd really love to see. Even to go out to the Maritimes would be cool. There's some cool shit out there. I've heard good things from friends that have toured out that way.
Yeah, I constantly hear that they are very appreciative of all the metal bands that do come out.
Yeah, well, not a lot of the cross-Canada tours hit that far. They usually end in Quebec and kind of turn back around.
Yeah. Yeah, no, but for Ontario, I recommend Kitchener, because that seems to be the really hot metal scene. We have bands like Raider, Invicta, Cathartic Demise, APOC, just
Are all those bands from Kitchener?
They're from the Kitchener area, yeah.
Oh, sick. Because, yeah, those are all bands I'm familiar with that absolutely rip. I had no idea they were all from the same area in Ontario.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's amazing what has come from that area, and it's just a very strong scene there. Even if you go towards London, Ontario, there's stuff there like Tortured Saint and a bunch of other good bands.
Sick. Yeah, Tortured Saint's awesome. We saw them at Armstrong Metal Fest last year.
They wouldn't happen to be with Centuries of Decay, would they?
They were. Okay. Tortured Saint, I don't believe, was actually scheduled to play Armstrong, but there was a bunch of bands that dropped off because Betraying the Martyrs had a it was a really horrible accident, like their trailer caught on fire or something.
Yes, I
And
heard of that.
yeah, and half their tour package wasn't able to make the show because of that. And yeah, Tortured Saint, who was on tour with Centuries, just hopped on the bill last minute to kind of fill the space, and they were awesome. They were a great band.
Yeah, no. Yeah, no, I still can't believe that was over a year ago. That whole Betraying the Martyrs.
Yeah, yeah, something like that. I think July last year that all went down during Armstrong.
Wow.
Yeah, well, we were already at the festival when we got the news, and that was a shock.
Yeah, man. Jeez. No. So for Truent, what helps you stand out from all the other bands from the Vancouver scene?
Oh, that's a difficult question because we have so many kick-ass bands from our area that I don't really dare compare ourselves to. But I think we put on a really high energy show, and I think this is a very difficult question. I think we have a really high energy show, and I think our sound is a lot different from a lot of bands in Vancouver. We have quite a few tech death bands, because obviously I'm sure you're familiar with Archspire, who's probably one of the biggest bands from Vancouver over the last few years. So there's been quite a few bands that follow suit, and we love those bands. We love like tech death and all that stuff. It does have an influence on what we do. But I think we play a little bit more of a straightforward style of metal with a more progressive technical edge to it than a lot of bands from our city, and I think it gives people something good to move to. It kind of creates a vibe where people are wanting to go hard to it.
Excellent. What for you personally is the most memorable thing you've ever seen during a show?
We saw a Fistfight during our set while we were playing in Victoria, BC. We did a little island tour with our friends in Technical Damage. And yeah, the first night of that tour, we played Victoria. And during our song, I think it was during our song Burdens, during like the breakdown, I kind of came up from doing my headbanging thing, and there were two dudes just throwing hands at each other and having a full-on fist fight. That was wild. Another one actually it was our last show before quarantine shut us down. We played a town called Mission in British Columbia, which is actually right next door to Maple Ridge to the east. And there was a dude right up front who was super drunk, and he chucked his like glass of whiskey down and smashed the glass, and I didn't quite see it, so I jumped into the crowd and I slipped on his ice that he fucking had on the floor, and I hit my head like in the pile of shattered glass. But thankfully I didn't cut myself or anything, but that was a bit of a shock to hit the floor and immediately slip, because sometimes I'd jump off the stage and try to do some fun stuff like that, but yeah, that one kind of backfired on me.
Jeez, man. Okay, are you ready for a tougher question?
Yeah, hit me.
What's the 5-year plan?
Ooh, shit. Shit. The 5-year plan. Well, we're going to finish up this record. Our intention is to have the record out as early as possible next year. Hit the road as much as we possibly can to get that out there. We're probably going to spend 6 months to a year kind of on the road to promote that record on and off. A lot of festivals, one-off shows, small tours and stuff like that. And then we're going to get back and we're going to do another record. We've written quite a lot of material for another record to come out. We've had a really great streak of writing a lot of stuff, so we actually kind of have a bit of a head start on more material. And yeah, we're going to get back in and kind of repeat that process, slowly pushing further and further out every time we tour, and to eventually, kind of be able to have strongholds throughout North America as a whole, and see how far it can take us. Just keep pushing.
Awesome. Now, okay, I remember what I was going to ask you again.
All right.
Here we go. as a musician and as a recording artist, do you prefer EPs or full lengths?
I think I prefer short full lengths, kind of in the like 7 to 10 song range. I think is kind of the like golden number of tracks on a record these days. Yeah, like that seems to be the magic number: 7, 8, 9, 10 songs on a record. A lot of my favorite newer releases are kind of sitting in that, and a shorter record like that, as far as like number of tracks goes, gives artists an opportunity to expand on those songs and write some longer, more interesting songs. Like some of my favorite local area releases from the past few years have been like 7 songs long. Like the last Neck of the Woods album they just put out in March was 7 songs, and that album kicked ass. Didn't drag on too long. It was just, you know, the 35 minutes of intensity that I want from a current metal record. It was fantastic. So I'd say, yeah, full lengths, but on the shorter side of full lengths.
Excellent. And now we come to our last question. We ask this to every guest that comes on Thrashers Paradise. We call it a poser question to ensure that we're not just talking to some random guy we met in a group chat that was created by a Swedish guy.
All
I
right.
just want to be sure, because you never know.
Yeah.
So the question is simple. Who would win in the fight, Lemmy or God?
Lemmy is God.
There we go.
Yeah.
That's
That's a trick question.
See, you'd think people would think that, but a lot of times I've had people be like,
Shit, eh? You know, people have never seen Airheads before.
Clearly not. No, the one band from Colorado, I won't name the band, but they asked me, who was Lemmy?
I'm sorry. Now?
Dead serious, man.
Now that just feels blasphemous to me. Wow.
I know, right? I was in shock.
Yeah, that's intense. Fuck.
Like, well, they were a metalcore band, but I was just like, oh.
It doesn't really even matter what style you're in. You should at least be familiar with who that is. Yeah.
Exactly. Sure. No, but thank you, Spencer, so much for taking time out of your very, very, very extremely and high demanding schedule to come on Thrashers Paradise.
So incredibly busy, just, you know, always outside and doing things, being close to other people right now, you know. Oh, no, thank you so much for having me on, man. This was awesome. We really appreciate you. Hopefully, if you're coming out to Loud as Hell and that still happens, we'll get to meet in person and be able to chat and have a drink or two over some metal bands.
Yeah, I would love that, man. Again, thank you so much. And anytime, you're more than welcome to come back on Thrashers Paradise. Now, before we leave, is there anything you'd like to say to the people watching this?
Stay inside, stay safe, wash your hands. The more you do that now, the faster bands will be able to get back out on the road and keep entertaining you. That's really all I gotta say is just do what's right, and we'll all be having a good time in no time.
Excellent. And until next time.
Keep
on thrashing.
Hell yeah, man. Take it easy.
Devoted to destruction.